today's top 5, where Steve and I have a list of things in sports context that we order 1 through 5, and we present our information and facts to you all fine people, viewers, and listeners. Today's top 5, we have Aaron Rodgers' top 5 replacements at quarterback. Now, I will say that the Jets came out and Robert Saleh came out and said that Zach Wilson is their guy. He is their starter for the foreseeable future, and they are not looking to make moves, which is fine. I respect that decision. But these are free agents who Steve and I think would be adequate replacements.
And even with those comments, literally last season, Robert Saleh said he's not our guy. So it's like they can sit here and say he's the guy, but we've already seen what Zach Wilson can offer. So
sure. Yeah, so these are what we think could be the best 5 free agent replacements for Aaron Rodgers. So without further ado, today's top 5. So here you have it, today's top 5, Aaron Rodgers' 5 best replacements. Let's start at the bottom, work our way up. Number 5, familiar face and name, Zach Wilson. Now, before we started this segment, I know I had said it was all free agents, but I think there's something to be said about keeping Zach Wilson at the quarterback spot because, like, what is Zach Wilson's mentality going into the future in these coming weeks for the Jets? Because like you said, Steve, they said last year that Zach Wilson was not our guy. They immediately replaced him with Aaron Rodgers. He was considered probably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL last season, and they immediately were getting ready to move on and replace him. Now he's back at the helm. I just think Zach Wilson has a good young mentality of like, I got to reprove myself. I got to establish myself. You don't want to make the same mistake twice and get re-embarrassed and be the laughing stock of the NFL in terms of starting quarterbacks. So I think building with him and just keeping, you drafted him, build up with him, see how he rides for the season and just, see what happens, play it out with him. So I think he is a good number 5 spot.
It's not like they need a Patrick Mahomes to be successful this season. They just need a guy who isn't going to make too many mistakes. Zach Wilson made a lot of them last year and the year prior. He got benched for Mike White, I believe, last year at one point in time. He is somebody who the Jets believed in, and I feel like they still believe in, but he needs to start showing them something. So, yeah, number 5 is a good spot for him.
Yeah, in the same breath about trying something out, some familiar faces, number 4, we got Joe Flacco, who was one of the replacements for Zach Wilson. So Joe Flacco has not played football since September of 22. In his 8-game stretch, I think it was 3 games. My apologies. 3-game stretch with the Jets as their starter. 91 for 115 in terms of his attempts and completions, 901 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Joe Flacco is pretty much, to me, it's like Zach Wilson, but instead of having a young, prove himself, not make the same mistake twice guy, you have a veteran maybe trying to stay in the league, want to reprove himself, and just like you said, just good enough to keep them afloat. I see the only benefit to taking Joe Flacco over Zach Wilson is, like I said, you have obviously more experience, maybe a little bit of a safer bet.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's the veteran presence with him. And if you want a guy that's not going to make those young mistakes that Zach Wilson does, and a guy who's probably going to, not get your team in trouble as much as Zach Wilson would, Joe Flacco is a good placeholder. I look at Joe Flacco as a guy who is well past his prime, but still has enough spunk to try and prove himself.
And then number 3 is someone who actually I wanted at number 1 on this list. And then as I started doing the research, just had to get bumped down. That is Cam Newton. 50% completion rating or percentage, in his last 5 starts for the Carolina Panthers. He also had 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions to throw along with 4 rushing touchdowns. I, at one point in time when Cam Newton was cut from the Patriots, was shocked and confused that he was not on an NFL roster. Because I was convinced that there were not 32 quarterbacks better than Cam Newton at that time. I just knew there weren't. Then he comes in with Carolina and drops the ball hard. I mean, I think it's pretty abundantly clear that Cam Newton is no longer a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Almost like it's kind of a lot of common themes here. He's like a mix of the Joe Flacco and Zach Wilson argument. He's a vet. He's been in the league a long time, still has a lot to prove. And because of what I just said about Cam Newton, you would think he would take this team and thrive with them, trying to build up, like I said, get that resume and reestablish himself similar to Joe Flacco. I don't see Cam Newton being a long-term or even high-winning viable solution. So he sits here at number 3.
Yeah, Cam Newton's probably the most durable out of the top 3, I'd say. He's the one that's not going to get hurt.
Yep.
He's the one that's going to be able to stay healthy. And he might be below average, but he's consistent with his play. So you know what you're getting with him. So, do you need Cam Newton to return to MVP Cam Newton, or do you just need Cam Newton to make smart athletic plays? So, yeah him at 3, I'd be okay with him at 2, either, but I think that just because of how bad he looked most recently, I think 3 is a deserving point for him.
I thought about this when you were just explaining that. It's important to remember for not so much Joe Flacco, but Cam Newton and Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers has said he's still going to be in the building, still going to be a part of the team. I will not be shocked if he traveled with the team to almost every game. He'll be around. Zach Wilson being young, not having the overall just general experience. Can Aaron Rodgers kind of offset some of that by still being around? Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I think 3 for Cam Newton is pretty good spot. Like I said, almost number 1 on this list.
Well, and he's also never had a mentor. Like, he's never had an older veteran quarterback to learn from. So maybe Cam Newton and Aaron Rodgers could be a match made in heaven.
Number 2, an almost former MVP in 2017 and a technical Super Bowl champion in Carson Wentz. Now, Carson Wentz, in his last 6 starts, which were September through October of last year, he had 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 14 for 232 for his attempts. Like I said, just under 1,500 yards. Those are decent starting quarterback numbers, but it doesn't produce to winning. And we've known that Carson Wentz, with his stint in Washington, may not be leading you to wins anymore. Like you said, how Cam Newton is durable. I think Carson Wentz is a good, baseline average. Like, if we need someone to come in and just kind of keep us at 500, that could be Carson Wentz. Again, not a long-term solution, but he's got a good head. He makes good plays, doesn't force a whole lot, and he will look to use other people on the Jets. So Carson Wentz at number 2.
Yeah, Carson Wentz in 2022 was 2-5 with 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. But people forget the year prior in 2021, he was 9-8 and had 27 touchdowns and 7 interceptions with the Colts. So 27-7 is not bad starting QB numbers. That's middle of the road for the NFL. Carson Wentz is not a durable player at all to me.
No.
But with an offensive line that can keep him upright, which I think the Jets have, I think that Carson Wentz is the kind of guy that can come in and surprise people.
I think we have a good number 1, and I think we will both have good arguments to make, and that is Matt Ryan. Now, Matt Ryan just retired from the NFL this past season. He is probably a Hall of Famer, right? He's got to be a Hall of Famer. Yeah. But Matt Ryan, in his 12 games last season, had just over 3,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and an 83 passer rating. Matt Ryan, I just said about Carson Wentz having a good head and making the right plays. Matt Ryan is even a step above that in terms of, I think, what he'll be able to do with this team and his decision-making. Matt Ryan, by no means, he should have retired. He wasn't a great starting quarterback. He was one of the bottom-tier starting quarterbacks last season.
Yeah.
He's just old, out of it, doesn't have the ability anymore. That's fine. I get it. But the Jets don't need someone to go out there and make these huge, giant plays, which Matt Ryan wasn't, he doesn't need to do that. He won't do that. But he's smart. He's smart enough to keep them afloat. He's still just a good enough talent. I mean, 3,000 yards at his age with the Colts, no less, is not nothing. So I think he would do great in New York. And again, I think an Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan brain trust in the quarterback room might do a lot of good things. Who knows? So I think Matt Ryan should be the number 1 free agent replacement for Aaron Rodgers, and he is the top of today's top 5.
In 20 2019 and in 2020, he led the NFL in completions. And in 2016, he was the NFL MVP. I mean, Matt Ryan is, I'm fairly positive, top 15 in passing yards all time. He is a guy who's going to come in and provide veteran leadership. And there was a point in time, Matt Ryan was easily a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, right? I mean, he had to be.
Yeah.
Like 2015, 2016, 2017.
I was going to say mid-20. Yeah, sure.
He was
at least top 8.
Yeah. He was in the upper echelon of quarterbacks in the NFL at one point in time. So you're right. We don't need Matty Ice back. We don't need him to come in and, be a Super Bowl winning quarterback or a guy who's going to lead your team there. We just need him to come in and not make the mistakes that are going to hurt the team and allow, as I've been saying, this defense to carry this team.
Here's our today's top 5, our 5 best, or who we think are the 5 best free agent replacements for Aaron Rodgers. Number 1, Matt Ryan. Number 2, Carson Wentz. Number 3, Cam Newton. Number 4, Joe Flacco. And number 5, Zach Wilson. Today's top 5.
Listen to the sound. I listen to the sound.